welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Olivia, I'm an interior designer and I'm here to help you make smart design choices when you're renovating, or in this case when I am renovating. So if we haven't met yet, that is me, and if you haven't seen my previous videos, I have put up a couple of house tours which you may find interesting to see what we plan to get up to and what the kind of state of play is currently. Now, I am in the kitchen today and I just wanted to talk you through a couple of things that we are planning on doing in here. I should just say this kitchen will be available. I don't know exactly when that's going to be because I don't know how quickly. We're still in the design stages of our kitchen configuration, so we're still a way off it even going into manufacture and therefore having a date for which this will be available by. But it is, where are we now? And almost the end of July, and I imagine it will probably be available before Christmas. It is quite dated, but it is a very classic shaker kitchen in frame, and the drawers are solid. So I don't know what they are. I don't think they're oak, but they are dovetail drawers. I think the doors are probably MDF with a sort of nice wrap. I don't think they're sandable, but I might be wrong. I will need to get the guys at Reno probably to look at this for me properly and work it out. I'm probably going to work with them on that so that it gets a second life, because the last thing I want to do is rip out a perfectly good kitchen and stick it in landfill. That just absolutely isn't going to happen. This obviously is a very classic style, but it is not the right kitchen for us in this house, and it doesn't function in the way that we need it to function. I cook a lot and I'd like to cook more, and I'd like to have a kitchen that really works. Now, this wall behind us will be coming out at some point in the next few years, so it's important to say that that chimney breast is being designed in such a way that whatever goes in there can be easily removed, the wall can come down, and then those same pieces can be put back down the wall further when the extension is done. So we won't be doing a kitchen for now and then another kitchen when we do the extension. This is going to stay as a kitchen, but this section here will eventually go, but we will have designed it with that in mind. So you can probably see a sample up there actually of the potential colour that we're going for. At the moment we're running with edible jonquil in probably the deeper tone on the cabinets, and then the palest 20% option on the walls to give a bit of added depth. So that's really fun. And then we are looking at a couple of really cool, quirky, interesting things that we can do to turn what is a reasonably small kitchen into something super user-friendly, great for sort of batch baking, hosting, all the things that I really like to do but just haven't really had the space recently. We're also big coffee lovers, so we have quite a big coffee machine, but we're going to do a few things to sort of economise on space, such as get a boiling water tap and try to hide the appliances where possible, because I absolutely loathe just having loads of things dumped on the counter only to find that you only have really the front of 6 inches available to use. I'd like to keep it as clear as possible, or at least put a lot of the appliances away somewhere and then leave a very dedicated worktop space. So we'll see how we go. But that's a bit of an intro to the kitchen. And then I've also got some samples to show you for some of the other rooms where we're doing just more decorative work. And I would love to hear what you think on this. Now, I wanted to show you some samples that I have been putting up. I'm in our bedroom currently, and don't be swayed by the red curtains, but I want to show you some of these samples that I have been putting out. So what I've done, and this is a bit unusual for me because I wouldn't normally get the opportunity to actually be in the space. With clients' houses, normally we're not actually in the specific space. We're working kind of from plans and everything, and then obviously we visit occasionally as much as we can surround ourselves with the samples and try to recreate the light as much as possible. This is quite unusual for me, and it's great. It's really brilliant being able to just absorb this stuff over a bit of time. So let me show you what I've done. Maybe you can give me your thoughts. I've literally just put them up and Toby's not here, so we need to just sort of spend probably a week sitting with this, looking at it in different lights, working out what we want. But let me flip you around and I will show you. So the vibe for in here is calm, serene, quite botanical, but with a bit of interest. We don't want to just go super plain. We're going to definitely do a wallpaper on the walls. We both love wallpaper and we've got lots of different options. So on the right, we've got Meadow Sweet, Cobalt and Grass Green. That is pea green, one of my all-time favourite colours. So that's option A. That, you can see how that forms a bit of a stripe. It's really stunning. It's one of my favourites. It's probably the one you saw in the background, a lot of my videos in my old place. This is a bit of a curveball. It's a Giles Deacon collaboration with Sanderson, and I don't think Toby likes it because I think with the bows and I think he thinks it's a bit twee, which is a shame because I do actually kind of love it when it's on a larger scale. I'd say this is probably the least likely to happen. Then that's Drab Green Edibulma. Then we've got a really sort of ditzy version. Let me go right in for you. So this is Cress by Colfax and Fowler. This would be the most minimal in your face kind of wallpaper. We've got another Colfax, and this is just stunning. It's really hard to show you actually on camera because you've got lots of blue, but it's very soft. A much more muted option actually. And then I've just paired it here. Another Edward Bulmer colour, which isn't really coming across very well on camera. Let me see what this one's called. Celadon. That seems to work pretty well because actually it's not matching any of these colours, but it seems to slightly tie together the blue and the green. But we may find we pick out the deeper tone because, so really what these complementary colours are for is probably the woodwork, so the wardrobe that you were looking at earlier. But then we need to just think about what we do on the ceiling. So obviously if it's something a bit more pared back like this, I might well run that onto the ceiling. But if we went for one of the deeper colours here, these would be more likely just for this wardrobe and any other joinery we do in here. And then I will kind of go a bit simpler on the ceiling because I think it might be a bit much to wake up to that above your head. I don't know. I do love colour drenching, but it's not so much that element of it. It's just that I think it may be a bit much. Final option we've got for in here is this amazing Colin Sun Sweet Pea wallpaper. This is one of my absolute all-time favourites. I just think it is so beautiful. It's really textured, a bit like the Colfax one. In fact, both Colfax ones have this just lovely texture to them. And then I've paired this with Aerial Tint by Edward Bulmer. It doesn't, again, that actually isn't a direct match for any of these blues, but it's a slightly more powdery blue because I think it would be too much to take some of these bolder blues here. That's a lovely combo, but again, that could be paired with a green. We have a mustard bed coming, so bear that in mind. We're going to have, generally speaking, a blue, green and kind of ochre mustard colour combination in here. Now, I've come into the sitting room because I just want to show you, this is my sampling zone. It's got a bit aggressive. You might be able to see all on the fireplace we have slightly ridiculous setup at the moment. In here, we've got so many samples on the floor, which actually aren't ready for this room. But I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can, on the fireplace. This green is a bit of a curveball, but it's one of my favourites. It's Eau de Nil by Edward Bulmer. Probably heard me talk about that quite a lot. I love it. My inspiration for this room is very much a barely there pink. It's north facing, but it does get light from both east and west, but not masses of it. Big French doors. It gets a good amount of light. Even no lights on in here right now. This is not a dark north facing room. That being said, it's noticeably less warm in tone than other bits of the house, which is why I'm heading down the pink route, or I was looking at Eau de Nil for possibly the kind of lovely warmth to the green that has. But I think pink is where we're going to go, and I will insert some inspiration on the screen here. So we will be colour drenching this room in probably the pink. Then I'm thinking some really beautiful rolled armed, maybe a sofa, a love seat and a couple of chairs. It's actually a wonderfully big room, this, so we can get lots of furniture in here. Bringing in some sort of antique brown tones and really lovely warmth to some lighting, maybe a bit of alabaster to shake it up so there's not too much metal going on. And then we will need to add in curtains on the French doors and probably blinds on the small windows. And guys, it's fine to mix that. You don't, just because you put curtains in one room doesn't mean you have to do curtains on every single window. So here are some colours that I have been looking at. Right, starting with Lick, we have Pink 01 and Pink 02. Pink 02 is quite peachy in tone. Pink 01 is very much like barely there pink. But what I want you to see, can you see that? Is the difference on what this, I believe, is just a stand. I don't know what kind of white this wall is, but it's pretty much a brilliant white. You can just see how much of a difference it makes to add in the pink there, add in some warmth. But you can see obviously just how much paler it is from the terracotta-y colour that we've got at the moment. So that's Pink 01, Pink 02 by Lick. Then we've got, from left to right, Pink Ground and Setting Plaster by Farrow and Ball. Now, anyone that says these paint companies all have the same colours, they absolutely do not. You can just see all four of these pinks are completely different. This is why this job is hard. So that's another two contenders, but I think I'm going to say that Setting Plaster is too dark. So we're probably going to eliminate that. Pink Ground is very much still in the mix. Then the other two pinks I'm looking at is Clove, which I don't actually think is technically a pink. It says, the spicy warmth of clove comes from the earthy red oxide in the mix, which really wraps the colour around a space. And you can just so see that. It's a sort of subtle, inviting, really wonderful space, but it's definitely, because it's got the reddy tone to it, it's definitely got a bit of pink. And then, oh, I really need them to tell me how to say this. I recommend this colour so much and I feel like I'm more on not knowing how to pronounce it. So there. This is at 60%. You can, with this, I think, get 20, 40, 60, maybe 80. I'm not actually sure, but you can get 3 to 4 strengths. Then giving you these two again. So we've got Clove on the left, Jonkin on the right. So you can see actually there, the Clove has much more of a brown to it and arguably is, it's miles away from that, so that's fine. But again, that gives you that idea. If you wanted, I suppose, something that was literally just Could that be pink? Could that be taupey beige? Clove is probably the one for you, whereas I'd say Jonquil is definitely a pink. But both so much depth, so inviting. I think these two might be in the lead at the moment, probably alongside Pink 01 from Lick. Then I also just want to show you, I'm going to flip this round. Then we also have these from Little Green on this side. So I love Beauvais and Beauvais Lilac here. And so actually you've slightly got me creating a shadow here, which isn't ideal, but that gives you another kind of selection there. And then love the powder and plaster range from Paint and Paper Library. But in order for me to get a kind of comparison, I need the bigger samples of those, which I don't have yet. And to be honest, I'm slightly drowning in samples at the minute. So that's where I'm at. And then, because I really adore this colour so much, and because I think it works so beautifully with this sort of general vibe, I might consider painting some of our woodwork. You can see a bit of it here in a green tone. I don't know yet. I really don't know. It may be that we just feel it's better to just completely colour drench the whole lot, and then we bring in something like this tone through the window treatments. We've got a kind of dirty olive coloured sofa at the moment. I don't know that that sofa is going to stay in here forever. I think we might put it in the conservatory because it's definitely a less formal, very slouchy sofa, and that would be really lovely in there with our sort of dining space. Help the whole lot feel a bit more like cosy and kind of easy to use. I do think the green combination with this space is really great, and I think we've got loads of green in so many of the things that we own that we love, so it'd be nice to find a way to integrate that. But what I could do, and I don't know if I've got the right example here, but I mean this would do for the sake of argument, this is a Jane Churchill wallpaper, is we could put this, which is a very sort of similar tone, it's a bit more appley, we could put this into the back of our bookcases. Now obviously if they're completely full of books you don't tend to see that, but we probably don't own enough books to fill all of these bookcases. So this is probably going to be some semi-books, somewhat picture framed, trinkets, things that we love, nice vases, you know, it looks sort of elegant and stylish. And then also you'd be able to see through to the back, and that would be a nice way to integrate some green. But then I also was thinking that I love wallpaper, but this room is so awkward in shape. And if you didn't, I can show you a bit more in a minute, but there are some stairs kind of up here. There is an RSJ that's been boxed in there. There's two different ceiling slightly two different ceiling heights. There's actually no cornice detail here at all at the minute, which I would really like to add back in. I'm thinking colour drench the whole lot, but then I might paper the ceiling instead, because I just think what a cool way to make it a bit interesting. And actually the ceiling is almost the simplest. There's two squares basically with the RSJ in the middle. I don't know whether you'd wrap it around that or not. We'd have to have a look. But we've got a woven, lovely pink woven. This is Meacock's Petal by Colfax. And this is Ditton Stripe in pink by Colfax. I use Colfax a huge amount with my clients, which is why I have so much of this readily available. But isn't that cool? And you know, it's the sort of thing where it would be a huge amount of effort to put up, but because it would be on the ceiling, I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't do that myself. I think it would be such an interesting, subtle detail that would just take the room up one notch from being just one giant pink space, because I do think there's a chance that that could get a little bit washed out and sickly. I think adding in something that's in the same tone with some interest and texture to it, particularly loving this guy, because it is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like, yeah, really cool. But I've also got loads of other fun options that I got. So we've got a kind of petally option. I loved this, but I think this might be vetoed. It's like a leopard print, but very subtle, through to not so subtle. And then the other thing I thought was kind of veering away from the pink. Well, that is a bit pink. Just adding in a texture. Oh no, this is the more beigey one. Adding in just like a textured paper. That's beige. Again, these actually physically have texture to them, which is really nice. So yes, a lot to think about in here. I'm going to paper some masking tape and just put some of these bits up on the wall so we can just take them in rather than them sitting on the mantelpiece without us being able to notice them. And then I need to get the bigger samples from these guys. But yeah, I think that's probably where we're at. Oh, another pink that I love, well there's a couple, but coat. I've just used Piglet, Kimchi Fan, and there's another pink that goes kind of in that family from Coat that I've just put on my client's daughter's bedroom. Grown-up daughter, so you know, it's not a childish colour. I've just done that in her bedroom and we've used 2-3 tones of it on the walls, the woodwork and the wardrobes. So it's really cool to kind of layer that, and that could be a really great effect in here. I need to go and dig out those samples because I do have them. So much pink, my poor husband's going to be like, pink, pink. No, he'll have an opinion. I'm going to just whittle it down first, actually. But yeah, that's what I just give you a bit of an insight into those two spaces that we're looking at colour-wise at the moment. But obviously right now in here, we have this gorgeous carpet. So I really do need to just get a screwdriver out and try and prise up one of the corners to see what's underneath, because I just don't think there's anything interesting underneath, but you never know. And more importantly, the carpet is so chunky that it kind of does that at the threshold. So every time I stub my toe on the bloody thing, so I want to take it up, even if that means we've got some ugly concrete underneath it for a bit. We've got such a big rug that I don't think it'd make any difference. And then we need to look at an alternative for the floor in here, because this cannot stay. And then we've got to do lighting, because before we decorate, we need to put new curtain pole up. We need to decide on what that's going to look like. We need to take the other curtain poles down, obviously make good, decide what we're going to do on the windows in terms of colour. We need to change this light fixture I'm looking at right now. Let me show you. Oh, gorgeous. Not gorgeous. Gotta go. I don't know whether I want a pendant in this space at all. This is just a sort of fireplace area. I don't think we do. And there's an old pendant fixture I can see fixing over there, which would be more appropriate to then have something lovely. So got to decide on that. Got to add some trim to the bookcase because it was done, I would say, reasonably cheaply. You can see the sort of big boxes where they've just stuck them all together. And over time, the joins have just come through really obviously. And I don't think it would take a huge amount to fill in the holes, add some trim. I don't know, maybe barley twist detail to the outside, or a dotty kind of detail, maybe a bit of cornice at the top. We might need to cornice this whole room. Loads to do, so I'm really jumping the gun with the paint colour actually, but we'll come back and do a bit more here, no doubt. But I thought, it's just Sunday today and I'm pottering around trying to unpack a bit, and I've just come across all these samples that I had shortlisted, so I got them all out and I thought I would show you. I hope that was helpful. There's more. Now let's go closer. We're in the hall. And obviously you know that I'm not mad on this colour. I actually, no, that's not fair. I love this colour. I think this is Song de Boeuf, Edward Bulmer. Again, I'm pretty sure it is, because I think I've got the sample here and I just put it up next to it and it's very similar. And if it's not quite that colour, it's a dupe of it. And I actually really find this colour stunning in really big living spaces that have the right light. You know, an enormous London townhouse with a stunning bay window and loads of character, and it's a really beautiful colour. Louise Rowe's house, if you want to have a look, has this colour in her beautiful sitting room. It's absolutely stunning, but it just doesn't work here. It's too oppressive for this space. When you come through the front door, you just feel bleh. So I have pulled a couple of samples that are very different. There are two super different options that we're working on right now. But in terms of the concept, what I imagine we'll do, well, originally what I imagined we would do is panel half height, tongue and groove, really simple paneling with a pretty dado, maybe with some cool detail, and then paper above. But the walls are a bit awkward here. There's lots of doors, 1, 2, 3 doors, a set of stairs, a chimney breast. It's going to be fiddly. Now, obviously that's fine, because obviously if it's installed by the right person, then we're good. But it's more just whether it would look very bitty rather than looking kind of appropriate. The other thing is in here that annoys me, and annoy is an unnecessarily aggressive word for this, but there are 2 identical windows. This house is symmetrical. Front door, and either side there are 2 identical windows, and yet the radiators beneath them are completely different. So weird. Ugh. Now, 2 initial options that I've got here are, let me flip you around. We have 2, I think those are both Colfax options. I will have to put the details of them below because I'm not pulling them off now. But those are 2, 1 trellis, 1 stripe, kind of stripe option from Colfax. And then that is, let me see what colour that is, pea green from Edward Bulmer. And then we have a complete curveball here, which I'm actually obsessed with. This is a Bertioli wallpaper, and I love Bertioli so much. And it is this one. So, I don't know what that plant is. Sedalia? Never heard of it. But it's really cool, right? And that's a really full-on option. They have some calmer and less kind of vibrant options we could potentially go for. And I actually should have just got a few more of their samples, to be honest, because I really would love to use their stuff. So they are the sister brand to the hotel Time, which, Time like herb, I'm sure many of you have been to. So yeah, they're the sister brand to Time, and Karen Hibbert, who runs Time, who owns Time, who is the big boss, she actually draws, well, she paints all of these prints in watercolour. She paints them, then they get converted into digital kind of assets, and then they get manipulated into wallpapers, fabrics, soft furnishings, generally. It's so cool. It's really, really, really cool. They're all printed in the UK, and I wanted to show you a close-up because it's absolutely stunning. It's so detailed, and they're all based on bits from their estate, from their garden. So you've got things like lily of the valley, you've got loads of beautiful kind of oak and olive, and yeah, you need to go and check them out because it's really fab. And I shall get some more samples so I can show you, but let me just give you a real close-up of this because it's absolutely magic. But my gut feeling is that this one has too much purple in it. I'm just not a purple person, but I love the idea of this. And this actually comes in a version that has been sort of made into a stripe, because that's what I want to do in here, is to have something that isn't stripy, conventional stripy, but is botanical, floral, whatever, but in a linear format to kind of create a loose stripe. And then because this is so full on, what I've done is I've actually just pulled some calmer tones. So you can see that in this flower here, there's a little bit of taupiness. And I've just pulled this from Edward Bulmer to go with that potentially. And then also silver white. Not actually convinced that that is quite the right colour, but anyway, that's there. Obviously you could go to town if you wanted to. You could pull out, there's an olivey tone here, there's a very sort of fresh green, you could pull out the purple, you could pull out the pink, there's so many colours you could use. But I think if we were going to go for a paper as bold as that, we would probably keep it a bit simple and keep the panelling below reasonably calm. That being said, that's not a very practical colour to have on hallway panelling, because I'm just thinking in the future, like dog, hopefully sort of pushchair, all those sorts of things. Maybe something with a bit of taupe in it to be a bit more practical. Anyway, I'll get some more of those Bertioli samples and I will show you my thoughts, because I really like to use one of them particularly in here because they've got some really fabulous things. You should also check out their vegetable prints. They are so cool. They have like a radish stripe, a carrot stripe, one that's got like, what is it, carrots, onions, radishes maybe, or garlic. Oh, it's so cool, but it's just so not gimmicky. It's really, really elegant and really stylish, and their bedrooms at time have all of these prints in them. Yeah, I mean, it's a magic place. You should definitely go and stay there. Anyway, very talented. Yeah, can't really even get my head around how that all works, but it's really epic. So that's my thinking at the moment. I have actually, oh, let me just show you what I've pulled out for the kitchen. Right, number one is Lilac Pink by Edward Bulmer. Number two is, I think, Jonquil. No, that's Clove again. Oh yeah. Now, I'm just jumping on here because I had a question. I've actually had a couple of questions on Instagram after I mentioned the kitchen reno in my recent house tour on YouTube. We'll have to excuse the absolute chaos that is behind me. This is so far from being in a fit state. Somehow I managed to put a whole lot of tile samples up, but I yet, you know, all these like cards and everything that I've still got don't have a home, and you can probably hear the fencers in the background who are refencing our garden at the moment because it was not dog proof and disaster. However, to give you some context of the kitchen, so look, I'm hesitant to share floor plans and stuff online because, well, I don't even need to go into why, but I'm not going to show too much context around the actual kind of situation of any rooms in our house, because I just think that opens me up to potential weirdos of the world. However, what I will say is that, as I've said in previous videos, the kitchen where it is now will always be a kitchen. We just may remove the chimney breast and open that up into what is currently a conservatory, but will become a more formalised extension when we have the cash to do it. So what we plan to do is, where there is a chimney breast now that already has a hole taken out of it, that has the ovens and everything in it right now, we will obviously do away with that, and we will put a range cooker into that chimney breast, which is a self-standing unit. So that range cooker that can then be removed, that chimney breast can be taken down, and we can then move that range cooker 90 degrees onto that run of units, and probably add an island when we have the space to do so. But right now we don't have the space. So the actual, what will basically be an L shape of back units, will forever stay there. So we're not doing a kind of kitchen extension or kitchen renovation only to then change it in a couple of years when we do an extension. This is the kitchen, but because it's staying where it is, we can do it sooner rather than later. And as somebody who cooks a lot, I spend a huge amount of time in the kitchen. I work from home, like I'm in there hundreds of times a day, maybe an exaggeration, but I'm so often that it's a real priority for us. Like, we like to host, we like to cook, we like to kind of hang out there. So it's got to work, and it's fine. Right, it's totally fine. If we had to live with it, if that room wasn't going to stay as a kitchen, I probably wouldn't change it, or I might make some minor tweaks. Maybe I'll paint the cabinets. But given it is staying, to me, it makes sense to make that upgrade, but being very mindful that one of the walls that currently is the chimney breast wall will need to be removed. And of course, look, it's a supporting wall. It will need an RSJ being put in it. So we may have to just dock to the height of the cabinets that touch that very corner. But I mean, really, it won't be a significant job, nor will there be significant wastage. And that's super important to me, which is, again, why I would never just chuck this kitchen in the skip. I can't bear the kind of churn and the wastage that goes on with a lot of renovations. It is really important to me that we have a home that is reflective of us and our hobbies and things that we want to do. We enjoy being here, you know. We have not got to this point and invested this much into our lives only to then be very much held back by certain things. So it's a fine balance, but I do want to get it right. But I don't also want to just put up and shut up because I might have to move a cooker. Look, if I had to rip out a whole kitchen again in a couple of years, that would be absolutely batshit, but I'm not going to do that. But the reason we're working with the people that we're working with is because they offer this flexibility and because they could come back in a few years and make those very minor tweaks for us. Obviously not necessarily for free, but we're not chucking a load down the drain. So I hope that clears up that question, because it's a completely reasonable question and I understand why that's a bit peculiar for people, because if they think we're going to be then gutting the whole house in a couple of years, then that's obviously very wasteful, but we're not going to be doing that. Some of this house will see very little change from whatever we do in the next year. It won't significantly alter. It might have a new lick of paint in 5 years' time. It might have some more joinery added. It might have new furniture, but we're not gutting it and starting it all again in 5 years. We're probably going to take off bits of the house that have been added in the noughties and make some changes to that and maybe make some mild internal reconfigurations. Anyway, I'm looking out my window here and it's really exciting because there are so many. The garden was very, very overgrown, and because we've had to have this new fence put in, they've been able to take away a lot of that ridiculous overgrowth, and it's so nice. We're gaining meters back from the garden. Obviously I'm going to then put a border back in, but it's so nice to see it kind of really like opening up and getting bigger than I thought it was. That's really great. Anyway, this afternoon I am working on a whole bunch of new things. I've got to make some amends to a client e-design project that we submitted for review to our clients last week. It's 2 bathrooms initially, and then we are doing the master bedroom, some hallway stuff, some landing stuff. And it's a client that I worked with a few years ago, so it's really lovely kind of coming back and doing some more with them. But bathrooms are super technical, and we obviously initially show people the look and feel and the general vibe, and we try to give them specific products, a specific shower, a specific tile, but obviously it gets very, very technical with bathrooms, so we then have to produce a whole spec which can go to their plumber. It's a bit of a brain clunker because there's lots of drainage and lots of awkward bits and bobs, so I've got to work on that. And then I'm off to London this afternoon for, well, this evening, a really lovely event actually, which is an Addison Ross collaboration with Ami Wine. I think Addison Ross are bringing out some kind of bottle opener. Obviously they do really cool kind of home and kitchen bits, from lights to, I mean, I've got one of their portable lights here, but they do some really cool stuff. So I'm going to go take my sister to that event, which is fun, and get on with some work. But I've just been to have my hair cut, which is why it looks quite so glam for a random morning. I look ridiculous. I've got my gym kit on, and I did have a cap on because it was raining. So I was like, I looked hilarious, but I said to her, can she curl it before I go out later so that it drops? I don't think you can hear me. There's a chainsaw in the background. Speak to you later.